cameras off because we're in the webinar version. So you don't need to worry about that from a recording perspective. But we record in case you miss the session, and you can catch up with the recording. And also, if there's something you wanted to re-look at and maybe something you're struggling to get your head around, you can watch it again. Little content warning, nothing graphic, but we will show some crash scenes, and we do that to try to analyze what we could do to stop that happening in the future or prevent the severity or lessen the severity of it in the future. So if there's something that could disturb you, we'll just flag that now. Now, who are you, Kathy?
I'm Kathy, Ken, and I am the program moderator. I work as the training manager at Safe System Solutions, and I've been in the road-related training space for far too long. But I am the person behind the scenes, so you can get in touch with me if you can't make a session, if you've got any technical issues, any logistical or admin questions, or anything at all, really. I do like a chat. You can chat during the sessions, and I will monitor that in the background. So use the chat box to chat, and you can select everyone to share your messages with. So there's a little 3 dots, and you just change that to everyone. If you'd like to ask a question anonymously, you can do that via the Q&A. So there's the Q&A functionality there. And if you want to talk to us, you certainly can do that as well. And you can raise your hand and we can unmute you, and you can ask your question verbally or make a comment. If the tech fails, and the tech does fail from time to time, as we all know, probably the best bet is the classic IT 101, which is shut it down and restart. And that usually resolves most problems. But there is the dial-in phone numbers if you need them, and that's also on the sheet that we sent through to you.
Yeah, thanks Kathy. Thanks, Kathy. And yeah, if worse comes to worse, there's always that recording that you can use to catch up. But hopefully the tech works, and we'll go from there. But now, I know some of you, but those I don't, good to meet you. My name's Ken Beer. I'm the Principal Engineer at Safe System Solutions, and put a little QR code there to my LinkedIn. I like to put out little different bits of information on LinkedIn, either via the company, Safe System Solutions link, or myself, but it's a good way to keep connected to people. But my contact details are there for those not on LinkedIn, but feel free to connect. And before starting up Safe System Solutions about 10 years ago, I worked for the Victorian Road Authority, Vic Roads, for quite a number of years in a variety of roles in road safety, road design, technical guidance, planning, and the like. And yeah, have been working the last 10 years around Australia and New Zealand, doing projects in New Zealand. And even before that, I was lucky enough to spend a good bit of time in New Zealand with Vic Roads in sharing information back in the days when government was allowed to travel and learn and share knowledge. But now, Kathy, Learning Management System. Tell us what this thing is, the LMS.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ken. And thank you to everyone who has jumped on and introduced themselves on there. It was very exciting to read. We've got people with 8 months experience all the way through to 50 years. And I'm not sure I've seen someone with that much experience. So very exciting to have such a wide breadth of experience on board. But the learning management system is where we house everything. So that is where you'll find a copy of the presentation slides, you'll find videos, other resources that we've popped in there. At the end of each session, as Ken said, we're recording. So we'll pop the recording in each module. And it's where there'll be a quiz for you to do after every session, and also a couple of assignments as well are in there. So I'll guide you through that. Great to see so many people that have jumped on board. And if you have any issues, or you can't find your login or anything like that, again, please just flick me an email and we'll sort that out.
Yeah, you need to get access to the learning management system to successfully complete this course. So if you haven't got access, get access. Talk to Kathy. Now, Kathy, when we started up online training, what was our fear?
That people would be tuning out and doing something else while we were doing this.
Yeah, it's very tempting to do the emails, finish off that roundabout design, deal with that ministerial query. So we've implemented a variety of things to try to keep you engaged and get you, interacting in this course. So the first one we have is Wally the Wombat. And Wally the Wombat is a warning sign, and Wally will appear a certain number of times in each module. And your job there is to keep track of how many times you see Wally the Wombat warning sign. Now, that's just an example, Wally. So your Wally count is 0, but that's just what you're looking out for, sometimes a bit smaller than that. And you'll submit your answers in the quiz at the end of the module. We also give prizes out because that's a great way to get people engaged, incentivized with prizes. And if you answer my questions through the chat, you're the first to answer right, or we might give multiple prizes out, or you ask really great questions in the chat. You volunteer to share the case studies that you'll be looking into as your little assignments. And Kathy loves running trivia before the session. Just could be, general knowledge trivia, could be road safety related trivia. But if you log in about 3 minutes early, Kathy will ask a couple of trivia questions, give some prizes out before we even begin. And you'll see Kathy's in the prize pit there. Yes, lots of exciting prizes. How do we get those prizes to people, Kathy?
Glad you asked, Ken. In the mail, in the post, at the end of the course, not at the end of every session. So don't expect your prizes to arrive like 5 minutes after we've finished the module. We're not quite there yet, but at the end of the course, you will receive a little prize pack if you've won some prizes throughout the session.
If we were Amazon, we'd get it there, I reckon.
Yes, yeah, we're not quite there yet though, but we're working on it, Ken. We're working on it.
We're not sponsored by Amazon, by the way. Right.
Yeah, if we were, we could probably make it happen. So I'll talk to them. Yeah.
Okay. You'll get a hard copy of your certificate and the prizes at the end. Now, to successfully complete this course, you need to come to 4 out of the 5 live webinars and view that one you don't attend, view the recording. Now, if life just goes absolutely crazier than it already is, and you can't make more than, you have to miss another one, talk to Kathy and we'll, sort that out. Satisfactory completion of all set tasks. And we set a competency benchmark at 80%. So we mark a lot of your work, be it the quizzes or the assignments, and you need to get 80% or above. And we don't shy away from that sort of competency level. We want people leaving this course with a successful certificate of completion that indicates that they have a base level of competency in the process of safe system assessments. So if you are really struggling in this course, you'll need to get further help from myself or one of my colleagues who will coach you and help you get to that competency level. So if you start, getting lower than these 80% marks in assignments, you're going to have to resubmit, and it's worth reaching out to us and getting that one-on-one coaching, which is always available. And we just set up a Zoom call or a phone call or whatever and just talk you through the specifics. A couple more things from me. I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the varied lands on which we are running this training in the virtual world. And we have people across New Zealand and it's wonderful. And pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging from those varied lands. So I think that's about the point I wanted to get to before I jump into some content. Kathy, is there anything else that we should cover?
No, I think we're all good. I have, there's a couple of people that have jotted some comments into the chat. So yes, do feel free to ask questions as we go. Don't wait for pauses because it takes time to type and get the question to come through. So ask questions as we go, and then as we pause, I'll send those through to Ken. So yeah. let's get into it.
No, that's a good point, Kathy. Please and conversation behind. If there's something that pops up and you've got some insights, pop that comment out there to everybody. So, get a bit of conversation going on behind the scenes in the chat. I'm happy with that. Now, we want to thank Waka Kotahi for supporting these sessions. They're doing some absolutely amazing work in safe system embedment across New Zealand, and striving to build capability, capacity, and then provide that platform to see it translated to on-ground action. And it's a really exciting time, and you should feel very lucky that you're in a nation so well supported from that perspective. Okay, I'm going to jump into it, and I'm going to get into some, I suppose, principles of the safe system first. Now, some of you are going to go, oh my God, no, not again. I've heard this so much, the principles of the safe system. But I might have some slight tweaks on it, or I might just reconfirm some things, but it's important that we all get on that same page with the safe system. So I am going to look at the principles and elements of the safe system, this sort of philosophy that we call the safe system. We're going to delve into kinetic energies and kinetic energy thresholds. I want to talk about sort of a traditional way we've attacked road safety in New Zealand and the safe system approach and how that differs. We're going to talk a little bit about behavioral change and vehicle safety interventions. Now, that's probably or potentially not an area you have a lot of involvement in directly, but it's really important within a safe system assessment that we think about that. Plus, as a road safety professional and hopefully a road safety champion, understanding some fundamentals and basics around behavioral change initiatives and vehicle safety interventions is pretty important. Going along with, of course, infrastructure and speed and post-crash care for that matter. And we're going to talk about speed today, and we're going to talk about why it's so critical to the safe system approach. And that's going to interlink then with Module 2, which is all about the infrastructure. Now, okay, there's Wally. There's an example. I'm sure you saw it. Wally count is 1. No more help from me now, but keep an eye out for Wallies as we go. Okay, so Road to Zero is the New Zealand road safety strategy. I'm sure you have a copy next to your bed, or at least maybe hopefully have seen the document, maybe read some of it, maybe at least know it exists. And if not, you do now. So it is the 2020 to 2030 road safety strategy for New Zealand with supplementary action plans and the like. But I just grabbed one thing out of there. Now I could talk for days about different aspects of this, but we won't get into that. But a couple of things I wanted to point out, which are some of the KPIs within this. So percentage of the general public who understand and support Vision Zero, percentage of the general public who show acceptance of road safety interventions. But these are the ones that I'm really interested in pointing out here. Percentage of people who have completed an approved safe system training course showed improved understanding of the safe system. So check, that's what we're going to cover off. And then percentage of road infrastructure projects that have been subject to a road safety audit and or safe system assessment. And what you'll see in New Zealand coming shortly is that they are sort of going to get combined a bit into a thing called a safe system audit. So you're going to be on the cutting edge of this in terms of understanding how to do a safe system assessment, which you need to do for a thing called a safe system audit. And some of you will probably know how to do road safety audits, be road safety auditors, or you'll come to the training shortly, but they're sort of converging together. Now, the two entities are going to be, they're going to be two entities still, but just one in one package and part of the life cycle of projects in New Zealand. And it is a KPI for the New Zealand government on the percentage of road infrastructure projects that have been subject to these assessment methodologies. So really important stuff, and you're going to get in on it. And I'm going to give you the tools and the understanding to get out there and do these. It is going to require you to continually learn, to utilize some of your existing knowledge, to group up with others with other areas of knowledge, but you will understand the process and you will be able to get out there and inject some safe system thinking into infrastructure projects if it's not already there.
A quick question, Ken.
Yeah.
Will this safe system audit include TTM audits?
So my understanding is that it won't. It sits outside. The temporary traffic management sits outside of what is documented in the upcoming safe system audit guidance, which is essentially the updated version of the 2013 road safety audit guidance that Waka Kotahi or New Zealand Transport Agency put out. Now, Austroads has done the 2022 version of the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6, which is road safety audit. And I was heavily involved in that work. And what we're doing is seeing road safety audits and safe system assessments come closer together. But Austroads elected to very much clearly have those as two separate entities. And you can choose which one you do at different stages of project. New Zealand is going to jump ahead. So you're going to go from your 2013 and you're going to jump way ahead of Austroads, and you're going to be in this space. So that'll be pretty exciting. But temporary traffic management, as I understand, is going to still sit as a separate sort of entity. However, the principles of safe system auditing will, be really integrated hopefully into the way that thinking is happening. Now, I do put a little asterisk on that. I'm not absolutely 100% confident on that. We need to wait to see what is actually released. However, that's my understanding from some early conversations. But
thank you, Ken. Yes, and Joe's responded that there is a separate qualification for temporary traffic management auditors. So all good.
Yeah, but great example of how to pop a question in, and let's give a prize to that person just to show people and incentivize people to get in there and start asking questions. Easy as that.
Right, here we go. Getting ready for it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give another opportunity to win a prize very shortly here, Kathy. So get your typing fingers ready, everybody. The safe system, this concept of the safe system arrived in New Zealand some time ago and was adopted at that national level of the way that road safety will be improved at the national, the New Zealand government committed to this idea of the safe system. And it was kind of similar to that diagram. I'll give a prize to the person who can tell me what year that commitment was made by the New Zealand government. You don't lose any points in or marks in the live sessions. So you can guess and get things wrong and have 3 guesses and get them all wrong. It doesn't matter. And you can write anything you want in these live sessions, and we'll have polls and things. It will not affect your grades for this course. The only time you're graded in the course is once the module's finished and you do your quizzes or your assignments. So feel free to get in there and guess. Any guesses come in?
We have a few guesses, and some people might have also worked out that you could just type in every year from the year 2000 onwards, and you'd get it right eventually.
What if it was before 2000?
Oh, maybe it was. I'm going to give it to the person who got closest, which is 2003 was the closest, Ken, without going over.
Yeah, 2004 is generally the date accepted. Now that's, it did not get much publicity or traction. in these early years. And it's taken us a long time, hasn't it? Nearly sort of 20 years to this point. But the philosophy has been mulled over and thought about, and things have been tried. And this, as I said, was an early diagram that came out. Okay. And let me take you back to 2003, when this was really at its height of debate. And I was in the road safety department in the Victorian government, and we were at Austroads meetings and flying around over to New Zealand and interstate to go to those 2-hour Austroads meetings, which we look back at now and we go, why did we fly to anyway? That's but okay. Anyway, so the debate was raging, and anyway, everything was okay. So here, with the idea that human tolerance to physical force should be at the center of the safe system. Human tolerance to physical force. Interesting. What a weird thing to look at in the design, management, and operation of a road network. Okay, we'll come back to that. Then you can see these elements that were around it, these bubbles, the speeds, the roads and the roadsides, and the vehicles. Okay, and that was it. That circle around that was the safe system. And it was said, we are going to create this system that understands human tolerance to physical force, uses that as a key design parameter, and then uses the levers of the roads and the roadsides, the speeds of travel, and the vehicle and the safety features in the vehicle to design, manage, and operate a road system free of death and serious injury. And anyway, then there was this sort of, well, hang on a second, what about the road user? And what about them being safe and acting appropriately and not doing stupid things? And then there was this divide. And there was one camp that said, well, no, the road users are humans. And if you know anything about humans, they are fallible. They mistake. They make mistakes all the time. They stuff up. They have all sorts of weird quirks of risk-taking tendencies and hormones and different behaviors that we very much struggle to control as a sort of overarching entity to try and control these humans. And then there was the other camp saying, well, this is ridiculous. You have to take some responsibility for safety yourself as a user of the system. And we cannot, as system designers, be held accountable to the ridiculous things these people are doing. They need to start behaving like, normal citizens and acting appropriately and start taking this task, which is highly dangerous, seriously, and stop falling asleep at the wheel, stop drink driving, and stop speeding, and stop texting and driving. Okay, so there's the debate sort of raged, and in true sort of committee fashion, a compromise was met with this square around the outside, which sort of said alert and compliant road users. Now that fundamentally was a failure in the philosophy of the safe system, because it gives us as system designers, and I call us all system designers, as in we're people that make choices about the design, the management, the operation of the transport system in one way or another. Okay, it gives just us this absolute blame ability and get out clause. Because so many crashes on our road network, in fact, almost all of our crashes on the road network is because people were not alert and compliant. Okay, so if we just make everybody alert and compliant, well, we'll reduce something like 93% of crashes based on well, it depends which study you look at, somewhere in the 90 to 95% of crashes are going to be eliminated. But the thing is that we're dealing with humans, okay? And humans are still the ones in our system operating this stuff. So we can't assume the mistakes won't be made. So anyway, took a while, but that got scrapped. Okay, and then it came over to all of these different ones, and you'll probably identify a few of them. That was an old New Zealand one, and this is the current New Zealand one, and lots of others. Everybody's coming up with a safe system diagram. Everybody's traditionally going with circles, which is fine. But let's have a look at the current New Zealand one. And to be honest, this is one that I share with a lot of jurisdictions around the world as I assist them in trying to operationalize the philosophy of the safe system. You can see that there are a series of principles around the outside. And these principles are really the fundamentals of this philosophy of the safe system. And I've repeated them over here, and it's worth me just going through these and talking briefly to them. So we strengthen all parts of the road transport system. So it is understanding that it is not one intervention or one aspect of our system that will bring us the road safety gains that we are looking for. It is a system. It is a holistic system, and it is interacting and complex. We design for human vulnerability. Okay, that's our human tolerance to physical force. It's a design parameter. Okay, you think about your drainage levels, or your lighting levels, and you've got parameters that you're working towards in that. The tolerance of the human body to handle force is now a design parameter, and you've got to think about it that way. We have a shared responsibility for improving road safety, okay? And this is where most jurisdictions have landed in this debate about, well, who's ultimately responsible for the safety on the network. Now, I think our legislation is lagging behind and needs to come in line with that. More advanced thinkers in road safety in terms of nations, and certainly none in the Southern Hemisphere are thinking like this yet. But certainly, if you find yourself in some of those Scandinavian countries, the road authority and the designers of the system have the ultimate responsibility for any crash that results in death or serious injury, regardless of the behavior of any road user. Okay? The ultimate responsibility falls to the system designers. Okay? And so we're a long way from that. We talk about a shared responsibility. The intention of the idea of shared responsibility is to bring us more into this and say, well, what could we do within the system to have prevented this crash or minimized its severity? And it's not to say that we are condoning or encouraging inappropriate use of the road network. No, not at all. We are just being realistic in saying that if we want to change this, turning a blind eye to everyone that the road user has been at fault for is not going to change anything. We might make ourselves feel fine that, okay, well, it's not our fault. They fell asleep. They've got it, says it in the road rules, they have to be in control of the vehicle. It's not our fault. Okay, well, we need to step into that and say, what could we have done? What could we have done in the design of the vehicle, the design of the road and the roadside, that could have woken them up, that could have lessened the severity of the crash? And so we are squarely in that camp, okay? Now, it gets a bit complicated when you get to highly, highly extreme inappropriate behaviors, but I'll talk to that shortly. Our actions are grounded it evidence and evaluated. Hallelujah. What a just beautifully worded, clear statement that addresses so many problems in road safety and road safety management, which is that everybody involved in it, in any way, shape, or form, be it a user or a designer or anything like that, feels this, feels that they have some expertise in it because they've been a user of this system for so long. They've been a user of the system by riding their bike or walking or driving and, been part of it. Okay, and we don't dismiss that. We don't dismiss personal experience. However, it is so important that we make decisions that are based on evidence and that things are evaluated for their effectiveness. Personal experience is no way to design, manage, and operate a transport system. And it is so important that we get that evidence and that knowledge, and we continue to evaluate and we make informed decisions. And I'll give you some examples of things that we do day in, day out, that when you actually look into the evidence and you evaluate these things, they make things worse in road safety. Yet we still invest taxpayers' money or sometimes our own personal money in these things, thinking that they're going to improve road safety. So let's get back to evidence-based on decision-making. It is so hard to do as a road safety professional not to be wholly, sort of committed by your own personal actions when you see evidence to the contrary. Our road safety actions support health, well-being, and livable places. Again, genius here, because there's some pretty good evidence and research and things to show that road safety, while it is a huge concern to individuals often that have, for one reason or another, had experience with road trauma, be it family members or others in the community or the like, it's a generally accepted part of operating a transport system for the public. People feel death and serious injury is just part of it, and there's very intricate webs as to why people are just numb to that catastrophic trauma that happens to our community on a daily basis. But what we understand is that to get traction in movement in stuff like that, we can get a huge amount of support for creating health in the community, creating well-being and livable places. These are especially urban area related things, but there appears to be some wonderful support for this. And those things go hand in hand with the safety, road safety of the community. So the idea to coattail on some of these wonderful initiatives with road safety in the road safety strategy is quite smart. We make safety a critical decision-making priority. So there are so many competing objectives out there. I just listed a few, didn't I? Health, well-being, livable places, but we could talk environmental, cultural heritage, congestion easing, and the list goes on, even, just in road transport. But safety is a critical decision-making priority. And we promote good choices, but plan for mistakes. And there we go. What a nice way to say it. Like, we're going to try to stop people crashing. And we're going to try to make them be better drivers, be better pedestrians, be better cyclists, be better motorcyclists, be better e-scooter riders, or whatever it is. And make good choices around when they use these forms of transport and what state they're in and all of that. But we're going to plan for when they stuff up. So these principles are really well crafted and well defined. And I always have, such a huge amount of respect for the communicators who manage to distill it into such nice, tight messages. Because as you're seeing, I write pages on each of these, but they managed to get that into a much more concise statement. And bang, there it is. So they're the principles. And then we've got, again, these levers. Well, how do you operationalize these principles? How do you get them on the ground or in the vehicles, in the people's minds and these sort of things? And you can see there that we've got the infrastructure, and that's predominantly what we're going to be focusing on this course, right? But we've got the vehicles. We've got the road users themselves, and we can still get improvements in different ways. We need to be a bit more thoughtful about how we do that. We've got the management of the system overall. And this one, we've got work-related road safety, which is a nice one to acknowledge the way the workplace is looked at from a safety perspective, and that so much of the workplace is traveling using the public road network. And then the central thing here, the vision. A New Zealand where no one is killed or seriously injured in road crashes. Now you notice there, it's not a New Zealand where there are no road crashes, is it? It's a New Zealand where nobody is killed or seriously injured in road crashes. And in fact, we acknowledge within the safe system and the operationalization of the safe system, there will continue to be crashes. It's just people are going to walk away from those crashes or have some minor injuries where they are patched up and lead a normal, healthy life. We're going to try and stop them, don't get me wrong, but we acknowledge that some are still going to happen and they're going to be within the tolerance of the human body. Kathy, any questions before I get out of the road transport space and jump into another industry?
Thanks, Ken. We just had a comment earlier, but it was earlier on in that slide, making the designer responsible is not sharing. So I think it was where you were talking about in our Nordic countries where they take full responsibility.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the shared responsibility idea was brought in to step us towards taking more responsibility as designers of the system. The thing is that it still leaves that ability to just go, well, I did my part. I got all the signs right. I got all the line marking right. I got the lighting right. And the fact that they ran through that give way sign, I gave plenty of warning. I was, everything was there. They were, they'd worked a double shift and they were tired. They should never have got in the vehicle. And they have driven straight through the give way sign and crashed. And they've been killed and they've killed a couple of other people. I can't be held responsible for this. And I say I'm not talking about an individual, I'm talking about the road authority or the managers of that system. Well, again, what the way that you think about it with ultimate responsibility is to say the system failed there, right? The system failed. The system failed way, way back, okay? The system failed in the car starting when they were in a state where they shouldn't have been driving. Okay, the system failed to let there be enough potential energy at that intersection to cause death. Right? So they should never have been able to enter that intersection where there were vehicles traveling at speeds and angles that had the potential to kill. Okay. So, then the vehicle should have intervened before jumping the give way sign. We could have done other measures to alter that. So, the list goes on. But, to look at the driver and say, well, no, they worked double shift and they were tired and they should never have got in that vehicle. End of case. What have we achieved there? Okay, we might do another bit of promotion around workplace, behavior associated with fatigue and driving, and we might do a program around that. And okay, that's good stuff to do, right? But it's going to continue to happen. We may improve it and get 1% less of this going on, but we really need to start to, hit up the fundamentals. So the philosophy then to say the ultimate responsibility is with the system designers just forces us to look at absolutely anything we can do along the entire chain of events to have intervened in this scenario. So yeah, that's the philosophy I'm trying to get towards.
It's fantastic, Ken. Mark's made a comment, the only way to remove mistakes is to remove the human element. So if we just go back to that first diagram where humans are responsible and make all the right decisions, we'll all be good, but people don't do that.
Well, I'm fingers crossed in my lifetime, we've pretty much got all of the humans out of making decisions around their system. But even then, I'm just going to have to leave a long, long time. I've got to stop eating chips if I want to get to that. But the level of autonomy coming into the fleet is amazing, and it continues to filter in there, and we're getting more and more advancements. We do have people still walking and cycling, and they're going to be hard to automate. But if we've got one part of the equation of crash in terms of vehicle and pedestrian, for example, if one of them's fully automated, then we're in a better scenario. But anyway, let's talk about manufacturing. Let's talk about widget production. Making some sort of widgety thing. Okay, there was a time back in the day where widget production in factories was a fairly open system. Okay, so people would come in and they'd say, I'd like to work here. Yep, okay, I'll show you around the system, the plant. Okay, and what we need you to do is load these bits of metal into this end of this machine. Okay, and that's all. So we'll pile them up there, and you just pick them up, load them in there. And then some kids come in. Okay, we need you to clean the machines, and you clean these machines at this time and pay everybody in cash. Now everybody gets a bit of training. Okay, well, watch out because that's dangerous. Don't put your hand in there, and watch this and be aware of this. And then so it's pretty dangerous in there. And now we need you to be responsible for your own safety. That's what we call a pathological safety culture, where we know there's danger, high danger. But all of that responsibility for safety is pushed to the individual to protect themselves as best they can. And then we see arms being ripped off and kids being crushed and people being killed and people being backed over by trucks and all sorts of things. And then the next sort of elevation in safety culture in the widget production sort of area manufacturing is to say let's look at where these incidents are happening and try to improve the situation. And so, okay, that machine's killed somebody. Okay, let's look at what could be done. Okay, maybe we need to change who's allowed to use it or put a guard on this or the like. And then, okay, somebody got backed over by a truck there where the truck backs in. Okay, well, what are we going to do there? All right, we'll put a gate up there so nobody's allowed in that area. And then you continue on like that. Then we get into this calculating safety culture, which is where the economists come in and they analyze the whole factory and maybe multiple factories. And they say, well, you're losing a fair bit of money from, you could produce more widgets because the machines wouldn't be down as you pick the, kids' arms out of it. And you wouldn't have to pay out the money to the families of the workers that have been killed in this. And so actually, if you just invest £30,000 in upgrades across your factories, that will, pay out £90,000 in more widget production. They're pounds back in these days. And the economist says, I've come up with this newfangled thing called a benefit cost ratio. And you get a benefit cost ratio of 3. Every pound invested, £3 return for actually implementing these safety improvements. Okay, so that's that. But then we elevate from that to what we call a proactive safety culture. And the proactive safety culture says we need a very, very high level of safety. And then you can produce widgets up to that, as many as you can within that safety envelope. And if you go, more risk than we've accepted, we'll shut the system down until you bring it back within appropriate risk levels. And that's what we call a proactive safety culture. And that's where our safe system is. Okay, we're proactive. We've set an incredibly high level of safety, and we will operate up to that level. Finally, once you've got your proactive system, you need to invest in maintenance of that system. Now, not just maintenance of the physical infrastructure, but maintenance of the culture and the way it operates. And it's an ongoing task. So when we think about our road system, of course, and you've already done that in your mind, which is great. I mean, we sort of straddle a lot of this. We're heavily, heavily pathological. I mean, we license these young people and we pat them on the back and we say, it's very, very, very dangerous out there. And you have to act safely and protect yourself. We're reactive. We fix individual things at different points, and we're jumping around, chasing the lightning strikes. A lot of calculating, a lot of BCR calculations, but some proactive stuff filtering in now. And it's great to see New Zealand doing some wonderful sort of proactive, safe system aligned work and different things going on. I think one of our earliest proactive safety culture mechanisms in road safety, and it wasn't the most full on safety thing, but I think it's a nice little case study, is just school speed zones in their first implementation. There's 40 km/h school speed zones, and I know you're moving now to some more exciting spaces in that. But if you do an economic analysis, a calculating economic analysis under traditional economic analysis for transport, for road transport, school speed zones are an absolute disaster. Because what you're essentially doing is trying to look. I mean, this is using a very simple economic evaluation model, but that's the way it's often done in road safety, is that they would say, well, how many kids are killed and seriously injured? And what's the value of that? What dollar value can we put on that? Okay. And so if we implement this reduction in speed during these times, how many of those are we going to save, right? And then what does that cost us? And the way they would work out what that costs us to do that is that they would take all the vehicles that go through those school speed zones at a certain speed, and then at the lower speed, and there'd be this, small second or two increased travel time. And I would add that up for all of those road users over all of the year and all of the time the school speed zones are operating. And then they would multiply that by the the hourly standard economic productivity rate for a New Zealander, which is what, $88 an hour or something. And so you get this massive cost, so to speak, to the economy of lost productivity. And you work out, well, and it only is going to save a handful of kids' lives. And we put a dollar value on a kid's life at about, 6 million, 8 million or something like that. I don't know, go talk to your economists. They'll happily value a kid's life. And then, right, you go, well, that's not a good investment. But how grotesque is this? We're just going, yeah, not enough kids killed. So we are so willing to push back on that and say that is unacceptable. when it's kids? Oh my God, are we just, as a society, accepting of that when it's not kids? So it's a challenging space to get more of society into that proactive headspace across all road users and all of our community. Yeah, kids hold a special place, well, you know, in society, I suppose, but as to road safety leverage, they're pretty amazing. Any comments on that or questions, Kathy?
Oh, you've gone deep very early, Ken, very early. Yeah, we've got great commentary and very polite discourse in the chat. Yes, pupils are one of our most vulnerable groups on the road, so reducing the speed limit outside schools makes perfect sense. And there's been some earlier discussion about blame. So, you know, looking to attribute blame and accountability. So if designers and local authorities are held accountable for every crash and design flaws, then we're opening up ourselves to potential civil actions, which Axel responds that there's some stuff that's so patently dangerous at being built that I would welcome it to hold individuals responsible.
So as would I think a few class actions on road authorities would, you know, progress our industry in a staggering way. And it like, yeah, I don't know. New Zealand ACC is going to mean that that's pretty unlikely to happen, because why would the individuals want to sue government for? I mean, you're going to get paid out anyway. Like it's anyway. I'm surprised America hasn't just absolutely gone loopy with class actions against road authorities. But I think the government has so many lawyers to, you know, it's just a, you know, lawyer fiasco. Interestingly, Mark's good comment, and what is in the Keep Cup did make me laugh. You know, interestingly, kids are, we always talk about them as our most vulnerable, and you're right when you say vulnerability in terms of physical force and risk-taking activity, and you know they're the most vulnerable. But if you just take that physical force, they're actually not our most vulnerable. They're pretty amazing in terms of the amount of force that a kid can take before they have a serious injury or fatality, compared to a lot of others out there. But that's a slightly different story, and people don't like the visual image of us hitting kids and knowing that they will survive.
Kids bounce, don't they?
Kids bounce. Interestingly, Ewan Strandroth, who we do the Safe System Crash Investigation course with, had some really amazing intel on that, and the advantage you get from kids' squishability in terms of the bounciness of them and ability to withstand force, you lose by the height and where they get hit on the vehicle, and the fact that they're a better chance of getting overrun and hitting harder parts of the vehicle compared to taller humans. Interesting stuff.
All right, Ken, what do you have in that Keep Cup, and how long before we have a little break and you can top it up and everyone else can top something up in their cups as well?
Well, I haven't even finished the introduction yet, Kathy.
Oh, okay, right. All right, sorry.
And you know, this is the 4-hour session, is it? I'm going to have to really go from here. That's all right though. It's good, important stuff. What about a quick quiz? And then we'll cover some stuff off, and then we'll have the very short stretch, fill your coffee up break. Now, generally, principles of the safe system, they're not exactly the way that New Zealand has written them, but you make a choice. Hopefully this pops up on your screen. The second one, Usain Bolt, I have not put into any of the content yet. Now, remember, you're not being marked on this, so just have a guess. Hopefully it's popped up on your screen.
It is the 2-hour session too. Sorry, we've frightened some people thinking to clear their calendars. No, it is the 2-hour session.
My jokes, jokes are not resonating there. It is a 2-hour session. Don't worry. I just was hoping that it was going to go longer, because I want to talk about so much stuff, and I'm loving the input and the interaction here. 2-hour session. Don't worry.
Yep. So which of the following is not a key principle of the safe system? And the second question is, what speed did Usain Bolt cross the finish line in his world record 100-meter sprint? So just jump in and answer those.
Some really good comments coming in. Charles' comment about, us, thinking about trying to encourage healthy lives and walking and cycling and the like. Mark's point, which I think is right, it's definitely right. He's hit the nail on the head here, which is that no designer is out there making conscious decisions to make a scheme dangerous, but we need systems in place to catch these. And safe system assessments are one of our ways to catch this. And it's also just us injecting that human vulnerability as a design parameter, and some of these principles of expectation of mistake making that really at a first principles design level is going to help, and then we'll have checks and balances along the way that look at this. So yeah, you're right. And a lot of the stuff I say in this course, I mean, I'm intentionally making issues black and white, which are not black and white. There's very murky gray issues, but to illustrate a point, I make them black and white.
All right, Ken, with sharing those results, which one is not a key principle, which is biggest response was aim for no mistakes on the road?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's nice in a sort of utopian world, but it's never going to happen while humans are in control of that system. So we need to minimize and manage mistakes, minimize and manage. And Usain Bolt, 34 or 44. Well, the answer is 44. Those who did some quick calculations in your head and got 34, maybe you didn't account for the time acceleration and the like. 44 kilometers an hour as he crossed the finish line. Why on earth am I asking that within a safe system course? Well, I want you to imagine that we park a car at the end of Usain Bolt's lane, like, I don't know, a 2009 Toyota Camry is a good one to pick. And Usain Bolt comes belting down there. He's got to 44 kilometers an hour. He's probably looking at the crowd or the person next to him, and then bang, he hits that. Right? Will he survive? And the answer is yes. And he'll actually most likely recover to lead a normal, healthy life. He'll mess himself up in the short term, but he will likely recover to lead a normal, healthy life. And in fact, that is how we evolved as humans in general, to run into solid stuff off the speed of our own legs, run into trees, I don't know, chasing a woolly mammoth or something. Okay, or running away from a woolly mammoth, probably more likely. And bang, okay? But we now propel ourselves way faster than that and have things propelled at us that our physical structure is not designed for. So we need to start thinking about, well, what can we handle in different crash scenarios with different protective equipment and safety features, and start to feed this in as design parameters. And so we have different bits of research and information and data out there on biomechanics of injury. And that's the sort of field we're very interested in for this little section, biomechanics of injury. How much force can we handle before we break as humans? Now, these are some curves, and there is a lot of research going on, different universities around the world, around Australia and New Zealand, creating new ones of these and debating this and, questioning lots of different parts of it, all right? But in general, these are still what everybody is happily sort of working with at the moment, and we're going to continue to work with these. And you see here for passenger vehicle striking pedestrian, okay, we know that Usain Bolt was up there somewhere, but down the bottom we have collision speed. And over here we have the chance of death. Now, Usain Bolt's just one person in society. And this curve actually represents all of society. So we're going to have very frail people. We're going to have really bouncy people and strong people and the like. But we know that somewhere around that 10, 20, 30 kilometers is generally highly likely to be survivable. Up around 50, 60, 70 kilometers an hour, okay, we know it's highly unsurvivable. And you see, 30 is this really important point because it's the point where it goes really bad really quickly after that. It sort of exponentially kicks up after that. Okay. So this is what we're designed for. We can handle that. He broke a few ribs, came back, won the gold medal the next year. Right. Beyond that, we start to get ourselves in real big trouble. If we look at this for bullet vehicle, now the bullet vehicle is the one that does the damage in a crash, right? So that's the bullet vehicle in this case. This is what we call the target vehicle. Right angle crash, bullet vehicle to target vehicle. Bullet vehicle speed, collision speed. Now don't ever think about collision speed as speed limit, all right? Just speed of impact. This is basic, this is physics, all right? And fatality probability, we see around that 50 kilometers per hour on the right angle crash between passenger vehicles is where we see that exponential increase, that really kick up, really bad, really quickly after that. And for head-on crashes, we know it's around the 70 kilometers per hour, 70 kilometers per hour for each vehicle, okay? If you've got questions around the physics of that head-on, 70 kilometers per hour each vehicle and what's the resultant force and those sort of things, I think Kathy will share a Mythbusters episode, which does Mythbusters-y stuff, crashes cars into walls and then into each other at different speeds and the like. We also, I put these in your PDFs, which you can get out of the learning management system, links to these little snippets of information. We delve into these in a little more detail. You can link to that. You can have a bit more of a read. So they will pop out throughout this course if you're interested in delving into things a bit more. Now, in a safe system assessment, and I will give you a stretch break in a second, in a safe system assessment, all right, what we're trying to do is put a score to the severity of crash, right? And so what we've done is we've created this sort of crash type, crash speed, and then this colored spectrum here. And it is a real spectrum, and you're going to have to use some judgment. You're going to have to use some judgment, right? But in general, you know, you can sort of say, well, okay, cyclist being struck by a car, where are we at with that? Okay, it's sort of happening at 40 or 50 kilometers an hour. We're going to give it a score of 3. Okay, it's happening at 70 kilometers an hour. It's probably going to get a score of 4. And these numbers will make more sense to you later. They're what we use to calculate end scores in a safe system assessment. But really this, and I put it up in a later module again, so you can easily access it, super important for you to calibrate your thinking in terms of force and scoring when you're doing a safe system assessment and you've visualized a crash happening. Okay, just quickly, this diagram is the bane of my existence in road safety. Every time I see it, I shudder. And the reason is that, not that it's wrong or it's bad research or anything like that, it's wonderful research. But what it is a crash causation study, and there are heaps of them out there. A crash causation study where they've done like root cause analysis and they've come up with, okay, this is the cause of the crash. This is the root, you know, the cause of the crash. And in most of these, it's driver behavior related things, driver failure. You're like, okay, so we've got driver failure, 90%. Vehicles, you know, a bit, roads playing a little role, there's lots of overlaps. But the reason that this frustrates me so much is because of the way people then use that. Say, well, that's the biggest problem. That's what we should be trying to fix. And what we need to do is say, our system failed. Our system failed, and we need to alter the system. Now, Austroads put driver excess and driver inexperience out here under some certain parameters. I'd just pull them in. But anyway, that's not, you know, not the point really. CASA, the Centre for Automotive Safety Research at the University of Adelaide, did some pretty impressive research around error in the transport system and understanding what are these errors and why they've been made. Slips lapses, mistakes, unintentional violations are the bulk of these errors in the transport system. So pretty much normal people going about their business, being human, and, you know, but then making these errors. Deliberate violators, well, they did represent sort of 30 to 35% of death and serious injury, not the bulk of it, but a heavily significant portion of it. Those are the ones with intention to seriously violate rules that are set, be that, you know, highly intoxicated, you know, high speeds on the wrong way down the motorway, you know, these sort of, you know, evading police and these sort of things. But they don't represent the bulk of the trauma. But, you know, the media, oh, gee, that's a good story when they've got one of those. Questions come in, does it include texting? It actually does not include texting. Texting was put above the line. And, well, yeah, it's interesting. It's like a 200-page Austroads report. I think texting did get a bit of debate. The prevalence of it in society and road use was just seen as human behavior. Like, yeah, you know, you can pretend it doesn't happen. You can pretend it's people making deliberate violations, but it's an integrated human, you know, thing that's happening out there. Don't get me wrong, we're not condoning it, but we're just saying, if you just say, yeah, deliberate violation, you know, road, we're not thinking holistically about, you know, system interventions. Okay, now I've got to a point, Kathy, where I think we can take a stretch break, but I'm going to make people work during their stretch break. I'm sorry. And I want you to just do a little bit of thinking. Remember, you're not being marked on this, but I just want you to think about sort of the traditional way we've approached road safety, victim blaming, emphasis on education and compliance, and the safe system approach, where we're trying to move towards. And you just link them. Now, a poll's going to come up, and you're just going to be able to go, okay, well, victim blaming, we're now on, you know, enhanced focus on consequence, especially severe injury minimization. Some of these could go to multiple ones. Don't get too stressed on it. Just a chance for you to think, to, you know, get your head around this and distill that. And I'll have a look at some of the things coming in the chat as we do that. Kathy, okay, polls up. And you've got
polls up, and yes, you have to work during your break. Imagine what it's like being working for Ken. No.
You've got,
sorry, I meant to stop recording before
you've got I'll give you 4 minutes, I think, to quickly pop some answers in, have a stretch, fill your water up, and we'll get back into it. Thank you. Well, let's end that poll, and let's display the results there. Okay, I'm going to actually, let's do it on the screen. Let's get that out of here. And okay, I'll do that then. And I'll do it on the screen because it's a bit easier to see. Anyway, as I mentioned, some of these could go to multiple places, but victim blaming, well, we're recognizing human error now. Trying to minimize its consequence and having that shared responsibility. Road user education and compliance in the past has been like the focus, or a lot of people thinking around that space, and that's how we're going to fix road safety. More effort now to create the forgiving system. We're not ignoring education and trying to get better education compliance, but crash reduction is now thinking about focus on consequence, severe injury minimization. We're still going to try and prevent crashes, but thinking more about those consequences. There used to be this old, you know, 4-pillar approach, silos to a degree. This multifaceted system with interacting elements optimized jointly as an interaction. What a mouthful, but I think it sums it up pretty well. Mobility, safety, balance. We're now maximizing safe mobility. So again, saying we need this level of safety and we can go up to that, rather than let's find the appropriate number of our community to kill and seriously injured. Some really fascinating comments coming in the chat, some really thoughtful stuff getting talked about there. I think Ian Cameron's comment. Ian Cameron is a Western Australian, actually, and this was at a UN stage where he made this comment. But we need a paradigm shift in road safety policy to stop the road death epidemic, and we need it now. It is unrealistic to expect that education and enforcement alone will bring the needed step change. Even road users who know and follow the rules make mistakes. A safe system creates an environment in which simple mistakes will no longer kill people. I sort of said kill or seriously injure people. Okay, let's go to a little bit of, I suppose, road network. And we're going out into the high-speed rural network. And this project was trying to get this central barrier system in this flush, narrow median. Wire rope safety barrier system, flush, narrow median. There, it was an undivided road, putting this in there. So that was the project they were trying to work on. And they did get it in there, as you can see. And there's a little bit more of it you can see there. And there's plenty of this stuff now starting to roll out across New Zealand. But, without knowing anything about this road and road environment and the whole, planning and design and development of this, I just want you to type into the chat what you think some of the hurdles would have been for those planning and designing the installation of this barrier in a flush, narrow median. And remember that, well, this one was quite early on. This was really the first of these types in Australia in this particular configuration. New Zealand had one on the Centenary Highway, is it? On the way into Wellington, well before anybody else. But, just type into the chat, a few words. What do you think were some of the blockers, the reasons why they were finding it very hard for the planning, design, approval, and acceptance of this project? I'll give you a second to pop those in. I might give a few prizes out on if there's any that particularly spark my interest.
I'm going to give prizes out for funny, which it's actually funny, but also very serious. Wombats crossing the road, getting stuck on the road.
Well, if they'd said Wally's crossing.
Yeah, if they'd said Wally, no, still gets a prize. Well done, Joe.
Well, interestingly, we do. Yeah, there's been some, especially with motorcycle underrun protection, wombats have some trouble. We've had to create little wombat holes, wombat gaps in some of them in the design of those. So, but yes, wombats are a theme of interaction. Okay, wow. Okay, this is good. I'm seeing yeah, I'm seeing some really thoughtful stuff going in there. It's like some of you have tried to implement these and come across some of these challenges, because we're seeing motorcyclists appearing. I'm going to talk about motorcycle safety in module 3 and what we can do from a safe system perspective for motorcyclists and how we assess these in safe system assessments. But motorcyclists were definitely an issue. We do, so animals, access. I think Ian can have a prize, because access was an incredibly challenging one. Access to properties, access side roads and length of barriers and brakes and these sorts of things. Funding, yeah, definitely. The people who maintain these roads, I think that's another really important one. And I've got a username there. I'll let Kathy work out who that is. Jay, somebody. That's a really interesting one, because yes, this was huge sort of pushback from the maintenance fraternity on not just maintaining the barrier that's going to be hit, but also maintaining the road and the roadside with this constraint in there. Emergency services, yeah, stock across the road. Larger vehicles, enforcement ability. I mean, the list goes on. Big one, actually, that added a year to this was the amount of deflection into the oncoming lane. which genuinely people are like, well, you can't put the barrier in because it doesn't meet deflection requirements. And you're like, okay, understand. It's going to be better than the white line we currently have, is it not? But that wasn't the point. It was obsession with, just meeting that standard. Anyway, the reason I put all of this in there, and I'll let you do that exercise, is there's just no end of reasons why you can't do stuff. I mean, there always is. This is change. This is new stuff. We have to look at what are our objectives. Now, a road safety audit, okay? A road safety audit is a wonderful tool for ensuring that we're not implementing risks and we're managing risks, okay? However, the road safety audits that were done on this project simply listed and sort of quantify, well, not quantified, but put risk ratings next to the things that you're coming up with, okay? And just, you got the audit report in the design of this project and you're like, oh my God, it just looks like it's the most risky thing ever because there's just issue after issue and risk rating. The auditor's role is not to say that this is a good project or a bad project. It is simply to list those. That's their role. And we didn't have a formalized process or a consistent process for us talking about the benefit of these from that independent sort of review perspective. There are, different techniques done within the road authority, but a safe system assessment, however, quantifies the benefit of this. Okay, it's a little bit subjective still, but it quantifies the benefit of this and then talks about some other ways to make it even safer. So you can clearly demonstrate this is going to be beneficial. Let's work on these little things rather than making, or, a report, which is a road safety audit, which makes it almost look like a showstopper. So it's pretty exciting. Now, interestingly, so much pushback on that job, and then, it went in and it got hit, and then, of course, it got hit. That's what, it was there for. Amazingly, one of the people involved in the crash, the one that didn't hit the barrier but was driving along the other direction and would have been hit, called the road authority and said, hey, just want to thank whoever put that in. And the comms people were smart enough to, get their details and then get out there and make a little video. So we put that into the learning management system. It's a 2-minute video, but I think it's just a wonderful, safe system in action. And somebody fell asleep. They left the road, or they left their lane. Okay, they hit the barrier. Everybody's walked away. Had the barrier not been there, they would have hit the other vehicle. And we would be here going, why on earth did they drive their car in that state? Right? What were they doing? And we would have blamed and gone into that delving of blame. Yeah. Yet here the system just caters for the mistake and everybody continues on. Yes, we got to pay to maintain it a little bit, but we've moved on and everybody's survived. So I think it's a good exam, and it is worth sharing if it's something that, you want to have a look at. Okay, let's just talk briefly about road users and vehicles, and then I'll get into some final stuff. And I'm going to have to move a little quicker. Okay, by no means is the safe system approach ignoring the road users. We're just recognizing those limitations, that this is not going to solve everything, okay? But it doesn't mean we're going to stop all of that stuff. No, far from that. Education, encouragement, enforcement, and the entry to the system, be that licensing, graduated licensing, I pop graduated licensing there, it's pretty good thing. But in education senses, we know, of course, kids are the most accepting of the messaging, and we can get some wonderful benefit for kids. We can also use kids as little Trojan horses to their parents in terms of education, distilling wearing seatbelts or not texting and driving and these sort of things in the kids, and they will be our little enforcement tools in the back seat, telling their parents if you do it right, and that it can be beneficial. Young drivers are our highest risk road user. And, there's a lot of challenges there. We're learning a lot out of it. There's some wonderful, wonderful education techniques, and there's some amazingly good research from around the world in this space, and we've got to be research-based. Now, Kathy will put into the learning management system a fact sheet that we've produced, which is not where, sorry, well, I had a little bit of involvement in it, but no, it was produced by the TAC, and it is, what is the evidence around what works and doesn't work for young drivers? What is the evidence? Remember, evidence is key. And it shows things like advanced driver training makes them more likely to be killed or seriously injured. And that's anything at high speed, learning how to get, do advanced steering, braking techniques. They are more likely to be killed as a result of doing that course, because they come out more confident, they take more risks. Okay, there are types of sort of defensive driving, which is basically done in a classroom and maybe at a very, low speed that shows some potential for some actual benefit. But, that's slightly counterintuitive, because more skills you'd think safer, but no. And that's the evidence and the research that we're going to show you that. Getting the hours on the public road network is proven to be absolutely the most beneficial thing altogether, and just letting them age, letting them get themselves to a point where risk-taking is not embedded in them, especially young males, 18, 17, 18, 19. Oh my God, that's just who they are. They get to about 27, they're starting to, get to a point of maturity, but it's a long way away. In terms of messaging to people about road safety, it's absolutely fascinating. If we talk to people about don't text and drive because you will be involved in a crash, they just go, nah. Well, they just completely switch off. Because the odds of them as an individual being involved in a crash because of texting is minuscule, right? Don't share this with the public or anybody else, but the chances of an individual being involved in a crash that kills or seriously injures while texting compared to not texting is absolutely minuscule. But that's not what we're concerned with. We are concerned with the collective. And what we have to do is take all of those minuscule chances and add them all up. And at a society level, at a community level, we are dealing with a significant risk issue here between texting and not texting while driving. But what we do is we talk to an individual like they are some collective and say, texting and driving is very dangerous and you must not do it or you'll be involved in a crash. And they just don't believe us, and nor should they, right? So we need to change the way we message this stuff and understand individual risk and collective risk. And the TAC in this ad, I think, did it beautifully. You text and drive, your kids will text and drive. That's it. That's all you need to say. Because people are like, oh, well, I'm safe doing it, but don't want the kids to do it, right? So that is how you need to make it tractionable, tangible for something that they believe in, something that is individual to them. We do this with speed limits in an unbelievable way. We're reducing the speed limit on your road from 100 to 80 for your safety. Oh my God. Gee, they will go nuts, right? I've driven this road for 40 years and I've never had an incident, never seen an incident. It's just those idiots that do that. Like, of course they're going to say that. I mean, every time they've driven it, it reinforces that it's safe. They've driven 100. It's safe. I do it. I've done it. I've done it my whole life. Okay, we're doing it for the collective again, right? It's actually, there's a Tasmanian study that shows far, far more traction if you say, we're reducing the speed limit from 100 to 80 on this road for the protection of wildlife. All right, fair enough. Well, I suppose the kangaroos or the Kiwis don't know, they're going to wander out there and, yeah, okay, we've got to slow down a bit, right? The death and serious injury to their community doesn't seem to do that, because you can blame that individual. Anyway, so better keep moving on. What works? Whole school approach across the whole of the education system, integrating road safety into it, combining with police and other partners. Support for community education. So we do have highly motivated members of our community who are going to invest in road safety with their time, their money. We are responsible for guiding that to evidence-based and giving them that information. Graduated licensing works. That's where you restrict drivers as they enter the system and ease the restrictions as they become less risky. And education targeting especially motivated, parents being the big one, but also new migrants can be highly motivated, and others. And action programs to change the way a road user uses the network. I'll talk about that more later. What does not work? Well, I think I've talked about all of these. Well, no, I haven't. Actually, fear tactics. So scaring people into driving safely doesn't tend to work. The most you get the best traction, is what I'm trying to say, with scaring people to doing safe behavior for the safest people by a long shot. And the most risk-taking people, or the worst in terms of risk, are not affected by fear tactics. They just switch off. It's not going to happen to them, right? So fear tactics, though, I don't dismiss in road safety, because they set a pretty good platform for legislative change. But what we're talking about here is behavioral change. Okay, we're trying to change people's behavior by scaring them. Oh, I better slow down because I could be involved in a crash. No, right? But scare them, and then say, you know, nationwide default speed limit reduction. Yeah, there'll be more acceptance of it. It'll get through the political system better if you do some absolute, you know, intense fear. Skill-based driver training doesn't work. One-off events don't work. Driver simulators don't work. Well, nothing yet. I don't know. I don't dismiss that one because it's technology and it's always changing and getting better and evolving, but still nobody's proven that with any any independent research. You got to check that one. The driver simulator manufacturers, yeah, appear with research, and it's there. You know, they paid for the research, and anyway, you know how it is. Participant in, you know, racing car clubs, go-karting. It's the same as advanced driver training, where they, you know, just become more confident and take more risks. And information only, I mean, that's a bit back to fear tactics. Only really works when you're setting up a platform for legislative change. It doesn't change individuals' behavior. This is some New South Wales data around the number of young drivers involved in crashes, and learner drivers. So they're the ones with the supervising driver next to them. And then as soon as they go to that red P, they're out there by themselves. And you can see it just, you know, comes down. Interestingly, if you do this, so this is actual numbers, right? But if you do this by VKTs, vehicle kilometers traveled, as well, it still comes out in somewhat the same. It's a little bit up from that. But the driver with no experience is safer than the driver with 8 years experience. So for anybody that tells you, oh, if everybody could be Michael, you know, have the skills, driving skills of Michael Schumacher, we would have a safe road network. No, we wouldn't, right? It's not about skills. Yeah, okay, you need some basic skills to be able to navigate around the road network. You need to understand risk and where it's coming from. You need great strategies to avoid risky scenarios. But you do not need some advanced braking techniques or anything like that. No. Encouragement's good. Kathy, do just jump in whenever if there's something I need to deal with. Encouragement's good. Like, I think it's a lost art in road safety of us encouraging safer behaviours. Incentivizing programs show some actual evidence that they work, in the sense that if you pay people to drive safely, they will. And you can do it. Of course, you don't, give them, you do it through, like, okay, no demerit points in your probationary period and you get a free license or something like that. And it's quite an incentivizer. There's some other pretty cool ones out there, but I won't get into them in detail. Advertising and marketing specific behaviors. The idea of, campaigns of drive safely, useless. Wow. I mean, what do you mean by that? Give us specifics. Rest every 2 hours, on a long drive, or, whatever it is. It's not it's a limit, not a target, drive within that speed, as in, some specifics around that. And then interesting stuff around recall or action associated with behavioral campaigns and the like. Comedy, very effective with one of our key target markets, young males. Or recall, does it change their behavior? Hard to tell. And New Zealand, I'm talking here to the best of the best in terms of comedy and in road safety advertising, in some really creative ads. And so we've popped a few of those into the learning management system so you can watch it. I'm sure you've seen them on your commercial television and the like. Trying to change that culture, the way we look at road safety, and just accept it, but also the way we look at blame. And I mean, this is one of the key things I'm trying to instill in this course, is that you can always blame an individual. They were texting, they were speeding, they were drunk, they just seem to have missed that very obvious sign. And you can then just switch off, right? We will not progress. We will not progress if we take that attitude. We need to change our culture to put ourselves and say, what could we have done? What can we change? How can we alter this? So here you go. The South Australians stole one of your ads, but it's interesting to see, talking now about mistakes in advertising. Other people make mistakes. Okay, hey, we got it out of, don't speed because you will be involved in a crash. No. Other people are useless. You better slow down a bit because they're going to do all sorts of crazy things. Yeah, far more traction than telling them they're going to stuff up. How do you talk to people about human tolerance to physical force? Well, I used the Usain Bolt analogy, didn't I? Well, PAC's gone with Graham. Graham is a life-size sculpture, looks scarily human, and the only person designed to survive on our roads. And Graham's sort of a long-term cultural change initiative. Every year 11 in Victoria, we'll get to spend some time with Graham. Look at Graham. Actually, you can use an iPad. You can look inside Graham's structure. And then they do some activities in their physics class, actually, and we did a lot of helping with the TAC in designing this and the like, where they get a road environment and they alter that road environment, and Graham becomes more human, or more human looking, as they lower speeds, raise crossings, separate bike paths, do things that we know are good and have taken into account human tolerance to physical force. And so we're sort of trying to create this generation, this cultural change, that people question the forces on our road network. Enforcement is a wonderful, part of our system, but it is only a part of our system. The police often become the face of road safety, and people associate, more enforcement as the way we'll reduce trauma. That's problematic on many levels. But we do know that we need to be very strategic with our enforcement effort, understand where the risks are, deploy efforts in that sense, because the cost and the resources and everything like that is huge. there are two types of sort of enforcement philosophies: specific deterrence and general deterrence. Specific deterrence is when you've been caught for something, you won't do that again. And general deterrence is that you could be caught for something and you won't do it. And, you kind of want to use both techniques. Visual presence, highly effective and, expensive, but highly effective. And is probably one of our only levers for a very quick alteration in trauma, because the longer term, more sustainable ones are just longer term and more expensive and get in initially. Automated enforcement is going to be very helpful and further rolled out. We know cameras work. We know point-to-point cameras work, as in take a photo of a number plate at point A and 10 kilometers down the road, point B, and average the speed. You get that, enforcement halo. We talk about a halo effect in enforcement. Often we halo a massive area. Then when we're able to do that, we're haloing 10 kilometers really, as opposed to, okay, well, there I saw a police officer there and there's a little bit of effect around it, and then it dissipates out. But the technology is amazing. There is nothing stopping us really doing some amazing things in this, apart from community desire, political will, political courage. The alcohol interlocks are an interesting one. So that's a device that goes in a vehicle. You must be 0.0 alcohol in the system when you blow into it, and then you can drive. And that's put, into recidivist drink drivers' cars. But there's nothing technology-wise stopping us doing that with speed. If you're a recidivist speeder, we could easily centrally monitor speeds within what speed zone you're in. Just showing you here that like 18 years ago in my government vehicle, we were putting in devices and trialing devices that told you what speed zone you're in, beeped at you if you went over the speed limit. And when you go back to the office, you could log in and you could see exactly where you went over the speed limit. Technology was working beautifully 18 years ago. So, we could limit vehicles. We could do all of this stuff. Privacy lawyers going to melt down when we talk to them about this, but, political will to change this. Now, Kathy, there seems to be lots going on in the chat. I'm loving this.
It's New Zealand at its best. I just can't, it's fantastic. So, we want to get people out of cars and into public transport, better, more reliable, all of that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Barry started a trend about talking about all the terrific, funny New Zealand ads, started with ghost chips. Nicole's responded saying, they did some work with young Maori men and they all record ghost chips but couldn't remember the message behind it. So yes, it does have that great recall, but not quite. Yes.
It's good stuff. Keep it going. This is wonderful seeing the chat there. I'm just going to cover off a couple more things. I don't want Kathy just give you 2 minutes to show the learning management system so people know where things are. Okay, vehicles. Vehicles are really coming along nicely with safety, and we've seen some wonderful safety features integrating into the fleets, and the ANCAP style systems and star rating safety has been really impressive, but it's limited. Like, here's the side impact pole test. In fact, I'll give a prize for the person who can tell me, a 5-star safety rated car, an ANCAP or an NCAP, 5-star safety rated, is done a side impact pole test, as you can see it happening here. They side impact into a pole, the vehicle, and the dummy can't get more than a level 3 serious injury, which is essentially acquired brain injury they're going to hold for the rest of their life. What speed do they do that test? And if you pass, 5 stars for side impact. Any guesses? Pop some speeds into the chat. So saying, what is it? 55, 80, 70, 30. All right, well, wow, good guessing. I think the first person was Charles with a 30, well, it went from 29 to 32 kilometers per hour because of some lobbying to try to get it more realistic in terms of site impact with power poles and trees. 32, we drive the road network at 100 where there are trees and power poles and people leave the road and they yaw and they slide and they hit the, we are so far beyond what the forces we can handle. 32 kilometers, yeah, 5-star vehicle. That's what it was tested at. So, well, we're getting some cool advances and some really nice thinking that now we're not protecting just the occupants of the vehicle, we're protecting the other transport users as well, pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, right? And vehicles now are rated and they have to pass certain tests around that. Still, 40 kilometer per hour test for pedestrian strike, and, vehicle bonnets pop up, airbags over the bonnet nowadays. So we're getting some pretty cool features and that's exciting. When do we get to this vehicle though? This vehicle that doesn't have any steering wheel and you just get in and it'll take you where you go. Well, there's levels of autonomy. We're going to see a whole lot filtered in. And we've been seeing that for many years, haven't we? Where with ABS braking and electronic stability control and things, filtering in and auto emergency braking. Level 4 or 5 autonomous vehicles, they don't need steering wheels or pedals or anything like that. They're driving around themselves. The difference between that level 4 and 5 is level 4 is like geofenced or only, certain parts of the road or certain speeds or these, particular bits and pieces. Whereas the level 5 is that full, does everything, goes everywhere at whatever, speeds it wants or have been set at a government level. We're a long way from that. Right, we see the vehicle pottering around the foreshore or whatever it is by itself, and it's very much sort of early level 4 sort of stuff. It's a long way from this, and there's so much death and serious injury to come. And you get all sorts of questions about equity and fairness and how this deploys, and how much legislation you need to change and everything like that. So we can't just sit back and wait for this. We need to get in there and we need to do stuff across all those elements of the system. But we will see these things integrating into the vehicles quicker. I'll jump past a bit of this because I want to talk about speed very briefly. I'll remind some of you of basics around speed. Speed and crash impact are not linear. Let's take here traveling at 60 kilometers per hour, something at 45 meters steps out maybe, and we see that it just touches it, right, at that point. And we have reaction and braking. Let's go up 10 kilometers per hour to 70. Hits it at 46 kilometers per hour, right? Not linear. That should be just 10 kilometers an hour if it was linear. Okay. And in fact, what we know is that speed change as a percentage, in terms of change in crashes as a percentage, for fatal crashes is a 4th power relationship. For serious injuries, it's a 3rd power relationship. Okay. Which means small changes in speed play through as large changes in the amount of high-level trauma. And so we can get really big benefits by small speed reductions where we can. The biggest challenge we have with speed and speed management, I mean, we know the amazing benefits we can get is just how the public perceive speed, speed limits, travel speeds, and all of this. And it's so fascinating, but it's so intertwined and complex. The more you dig into it, the more you find. Public are really not convinced on lowering speed limits will reduce crashes. This is some evidence and research and polling and the like about, a bit over half the community don't believe there's that relationship. Lowering the speed limits would reduce the severity of injury when a crash occurs. So that's interesting. Far more people, are in that space. Some interesting stuff. I was updating the Ostrad's Guide to Road Safety Part 3, which is speed and speed management. And I chucked this one in there, just in that context of speed, not speed limits necessarily, but understanding your biomechanics of injury, how much force humans can take, right? Start with that. Then work out what you got with a road and a roadside and a vehicle and a road user, okay? And then filter it through a speed, and you got a safe transport system. But we know that, safe speeds can be achieved through infrastructure and or speed limits. So speed limits are obviously the very visual one, but reducing people's speed through them making decisions to slow down because of the geometry of the road or the width of the road or these sort of things is far more effective and far more palatable to the community. They don't even know that they've made the choice to slow down. Explaining why a speed limit is in place can assist in compliance and acceptance. And protection of vulnerable road users is generally well accepted. And we talked a little bit about school kids, but also others is getting more and more accepted. Variable speed limits, I think, are great entry into altering speeds in areas by changing the speed at particular risk times and adjusting accordingly. And again, technology playing a big role in that. Okay, what's our formula for risk? Like, generally. Anybody know a formula for risk? Sort of like it's the international definition of risk, isn't it? Risk equals something times something.
Another prize for somebody to pop it into the chat, perhaps. Maybe people are Googling it at the moment. Okay, here we go. Likelihood times impact, likelihood times...
I'll take likelihood times impact, good enough.
Okay, Megan's got it.
Likelihood times consequence or impact or severity. What is the chance something's going to happen? And then how bad is it going to be when it does happen? So that's like international definition of risk. It's financial risk, health risk, road safety risk. What is the chance of a recession? And then how deep is that and how bad is that recession going to be? That's the risk of recession, right? In a safe system assessment, this likelihood part has been extracted to how many road users, how many are exposed to this. Then what's the chance based on the physical infrastructure in place? And then how bad is it going to be? And that is what we're going to sort of launch into, start a next session. Because I need you to very clearly get your head around what is exposure, what is likelihood, and what is severity in the road environment. But exposure is things like physically stopping road users entering conflict areas. Like, they put a lump of dirt here, roads closed sign. They are not entering the level crossing. There is no exposure now of passenger vehicles to train crashes. Or there is physical separation. Now, the bikes and the pedestrians are not interacting with the motor vehicles and are not exposed to that crash time. Or if we can move people onto public transport, that is an exposure. If they're traveling in a certain way where they're exposed to crashes and they can go to public transport, there's less exposure to reduction in exposure. Likelihood are all those things that we have been doing for a long time in road safety. And we're always looking for new things, but we're talking about signs, line marking, guideposts, sealed shoulders, good pavement, RRPMs, separated, maybe wide center lines, audio tactile edge line, cleared areas in the roadside, even traffic signals. These are stopping a crash happening, trying to stop that crash happening in the first place. The severity aspects of things are where we are saying now a crash is happening. How do we reduce its severity? And you're quite limited on what we've got in our toolkit here because it's speed, mass, vulnerability, angle, maybe, cushioning or absorption of one description. It is biomechanics, it's physics, right? Because the crash is happening now. How do we make it within those tolerable limits? So slowing vehicles on the approach to conflict points or at conflict points. Dissipating energy over time rather than hitting a tree or a culvert, hitting a barrier, dissipating that energy along the barrier, right? Rather than that abrupt stop at a tree. And the energy is managed better. We won't do the quiz, Kathy, because I think it's time for you to show the learning management system. But we will pick up with exposure, likelihood, and severity at the start of next session.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks for the little sneak peek into next session. Okay, so here we are in system in the course. So the link for the webinar, which stays the same for every session, is here. So if you've lost it somewhere else, it's in there. If you haven't already watched the Safe System video, and there's this great online learning session from Wakakotahi, so that's here as well. So this is webinar 1. So in module 1, there was the presentation slides, some of the videos that Ken showed and also some that he didn't show for you to have a look at. And this is where you jump in and do your quiz. It's a 10-question quiz, multiple choice, shouldn't take you any longer than 5 or 10 minutes. And you get 3 attempts at that. And if we just jump back, I'll just show you a couple more things. In the resources here, there's a whole bunch of reference documents and, just a whole heap of information there for you. Ken talked about what doesn't work for young road users and why, which is in there. So I'll just bring that up. So there's a fact sheet that he was talking about before in the session earlier. And there's a ton of information in the resources for you to have a look at as well. If you would like to share anything with the rest of the group, you can pop it in here. And the recording of this session will appear in module 1, in this module here, usually a couple of hours after the live session. So if you miss any of the sessions, you will find the recording available to you in that particular module, usually, 2 to 3 hours after the session. I think that's about it. Any final questions from anyone would be great at this point. As I said, if you haven't found your login for the learning management system, just shoot me an email and I will sort that out for you. The quizzes are due. Well, you just have to do them before. Ideally, what we try and do is finish a little bit earlier. Today's session is a bit jam-packed. We've got lots to get through, but we usually try and finish a few minutes earlier, so you've got a couple of minutes before the end of the session to get your quizzes in. And then we'll talk through the assignments as they come up. There is a short assignment next session, which we think will take you sort of 15, 20 minutes, but we'll talk about that. And there is your site visit in a couple of weeks' time, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah, but doing the quiz quite quickly after is good because it's fresh, and if you've got any questions, you can ask them later. But the reality is you just don't get your certificate until you've finished all the quizzes.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Have a great rest of the day, everybody, and we'll catch you on Thursday.
Bye.
See ya.